Both ladies for walking us through the egress of the astronauts from their spacecraft down the launch tower and into their waiting vehicles. For those of you just now tuning in or happen to be catching up on what's happening, we are live at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, watching Crew-10 make their way back from a launch attempt at Complex 39A. They were scheduled to launch with a T0 of 7:48 and 57 seconds p.m. Eastern Time. However, the launch was scrubbed less than an hour before that due to an apparent hydraulic problem with the Launch Pad 39A Falcon 9 hold-down clamp arm system, the system that holds the rocket to the strong back. And so NASA and SpaceX teams made the decision to call off the launch for today. There you see the crew along with the closeout crew, our crew of 3 astronauts and 1 cosmonaut, leaving their rocket for another day. So of course, Jessica, the understanding is, with astronauts that they're always ready, but they got to be feeling some disappointment.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's a bit of a letdown when you think you're going to space and you don't. I didn't have that scrub experience myself, but obviously it is quite common for a lot of astronauts in the office. And I think really they're just mostly used to it from their previous careers. Like we mentioned earlier, Anne often talks about being humble and knowing that your equipment it's going to fail in the least predictable of ways. So you really just always need to be ready for anything. And that's what happened here today, despite a pretty flawless lead up. It was something that we didn't expect. But we will launch when we're ready and when we're safe. And of course, that's always the most important thing when we're talking about human spaceflight. So maybe they'll have a little bit more time to relax and get ready for the next opportunity.
We're going to continue tracking the astronauts' progress back to the astronaut crew quarters, and then we will close out the broadcast. But we want to make sure that you, the viewer, see the astronauts making it back from the launch complex back to their crew quarters safely before we close it off.
And then it's a little bit like going home. Anne was talking earlier about appreciating the home-cooked food, and we have an incredible staff there at the quarantine facility. So, hey, another day of that, probably some other family visits, and they'll find a way to make good use of that time now that they have all the annoying taskless stuff out of the way that they thought they had to complete before yesterday. From what I've heard, things do stay pretty busy right up until the last minute here. So, it is probably still a little bit stressful. You're trying to reply to those last emails and send those last text messages and keep people up to date and close out different questions that people are coming to you with. So this could be a nice relaxing day for them tomorrow.
Well, it's certainly beautiful outside, as you can see here, as we are in the late twilight of today, Wednesday, March 12th. It was a beautiful day all day long today. Pleasant temperatures outside. Boats were going by the launch pad. It was a quintessential Florida launch.
This is that kind of scene that I was talking about earlier when the cars were going in the other direction, and now at night it's even more dramatic with all of the lights and the entourage leading them back. I wonder if they're playing their theme music again. Maybe not. Maybe this time they're kind of sitting in silence, and will they play the same songs on the next opportunity? That's another answer I'll have to find out.
Yeah. I mean, it's an opportunity to change up your playlist if you've got the time to do so. Historically speaking, when crews back in shuttle days were faced with delays that they knew were going to be long. They had use of the astronaut beach house, and there were opportunities to spend a little more time out there, and families were on hand. So
yeah, and there could be. We still do use the beach house in this pre-launch quarantine period, where the astronauts will go out there with their families, and it's a really nice, iconic, idyllic, gorgeous setting. If you've ever seen it, nice access to the beach and to the ocean, and it just has that real beach house vibe that's pretty relaxing. So I'm not sure whether or not they'll get another opportunity to do that, but always a good option. Maybe a final run down the beach.
What I love the most about that beach house location is the solitude. It's the house and the way Florida looked before anything, came around. It's so natural. The only really significant thing that you see towering launch pads off in the distance.
But we like that.
Yeah, but that's right. Around here, we like that. But it's so pristine, and because obviously this is a national wildlife refuge, and it's a secure area, there's so much solitude out there. It's so isolated, and it's so natural.
Those sea oats waving in the breeze between the beach and the beach house. My parents had a place just a little bit further up the coast here, so same kind of familiar coastline, and my mom was always commenting on the sea oats and how beautiful they were, and it's so nice to keep all those natural elements. So if they don't get a chance to go out there and relax, and maybe they can use those images that they had when they were out there earlier this week and get into a relaxing kind of state of mind. That's the one thing about the ocean, right? There's always just something so relaxing about looking at the water.
It is so true. Peace and tranquility. It's hard to not have that wash over you when you're out there gazing over the ocean. And that is just what the doctor ordered when crews are tired from a long day of launch operations and preparations. But we don't know if that's where they're headed at this time. We should caveat, because the decision has yet to be made about when the next opportunity will be, whether or not there will be some work that's required, or whether or not they have enough data to move forward with flight rationale. Of course, we'll have updates for you. Stay tuned to our social media. If you were commander of this crew, what would you do?
What would I do with the free time? I think I would try to do what I was saying earlier, really use it to relax, because I know myself, and as I was mentioning, I've heard a lot of reports from the crews being pretty busy up until the last moment. So I think I would sort of take advantage of the fact that all of those annoying things are done, and perhaps you choose not to look at your email again, not to get back on your phone at all, because you've already sort of disconnected from those devices. I know for me, when I my happy place is in nature, going camping and hiking, and when I am on a long trip without any technology, without my cell phone, I find it to be incredibly invigorating and can get a lot of recuperation out of something
liberating.
like that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I would probably not be in any rush to turn my phone back on. And that's the other thing, things are pretty planned. Like you said, we don't know for sure when the next attempt will be, but there certainly will be a plan, and they have to remain, of course, in their quarantine. So I would probably just try to relax, maybe avoid technology, and see how it all plays out. Could be some great crew bonding opportunities, I think, for them.
You're watching the Crew from NASA SpaceX's Crew-10 making their way back to astronaut crew quarters at the ONC. It's about a 20-minute drive from the launch pad to the crew quarters. The Caravan going down NASA Causeway. They came in on 2 lanes. They're going out on 3 lanes. Those 3 lanes are to accommodate big, heavy space hardware when it travels around the Kennedy Space Center. Fun little fact.
Certainly a great time of year to be launching, though. This weather has been phenomenal, and it's so pleasant to just be outside, which is not always the case here in Florida.
Yeah, you were asking me, prior to coming out here, like, how's the weather? I'm like, oh man, it's so good from our previous launch coverage that you and I did, Crew-7. First of all, it was overnight.
Yep.
Second of all, we were outside. I believe bugs were a factor.
Yes.
We were collecting quite a few of them on the on the launch desk. But outside now, it's just, this is why people vacation this time of year. It's the high season for Florida. This is the place to be, because we have just about 6 to 7 months of summer every year. So I cherish these days in February and March.
Yeah, we know how that feels in Houston, too.
Oh, yes, you do.
We've been pretty fortunate with the weather there lately as well. Hopefully the friends and family that are here as well will be able to stick around for a little while and see what's going to happen. That's always something, when we have these constant changes that can kind of become a stressor for us, is that it's difficult for people to change their schedules and their time off work to be here. So we always feel for that. And I know that happened once already with the change that they had moving off of the February plan. So see how it all works, but we will be here supporting them, and our colleagues at NASA are in it until the end for sure. So we're here to support them all the way and send them off eventually to space.
100%.
Feel like we're in the car right there with them with this view, don't we?
And we are. I wonder if they're putting in their order to the fine cooks and chefs at crew quarters for dinner tonight, because it's been a while since they ate.
Yeah, absolutely. And probably that will be definitely a bright spot on the horizon, because their meals in Dragon, there's no way to heat up the food. So it has to be something, you do get some choice in what you can bring along. You can bring along some of the elements of our standard food menu that we have on ISS, and some other kind of off-the-shelf varieties as well. But there's no way to heat it, so you have to have something that tastes good at the ambient temperature. So at least they will have a hot meal tonight, which they wouldn't have had otherwise on Dragon.
Absolutely.
A little bit less fun when your food's not floating, though, I have to say.
There is that fun factor.
Absolutely.
It's room temperature, but capturing it out of midair.
Yeah, it's okay to play with your food in space. Don't tell your kids.
Right. That's not something that you and I, as parents of toddlers, are currently doing.
Yeah, exactly. It would be a different ballgame with a toddler if all of the food was floating. Oh, imagine that.
Can you imagine that? Wouldn't that be like such an impetus to get them to eat?
toddlers in space would be cute, but very messy.
Oh, no doubt about that.
Well, I know that would be top on my list when you asked what I would be doing if I were the commander and had a scrub. And that would be definitely some squeezing and cuddling of my toddler.
No doubt. You've got a young one at a precious age, as do I. Enjoying every moment of that.
I assume it would get a little confusing for them, though.
Yeah, I know, right. Especially at that age where, it's difficult to completely understand what your mom or dad is saying. Well, we have arrived back where we started, at astronaut crew quarters, as the gull-wing doors open up. And there you see our CREW-10 crew members, well, waving to somebody who's out there.
Yep. Looking slightly less enthusiastic.
Slightly less. But that's okay. They will fly eventually. This we know. It's just a matter of figuring out when, as they hustle into the doors. Well, folks, that's going to do it for us today. We really appreciate you joining us for this launch attempt of NASA and SpaceX's CREW-10 launch to the International Space Station. Thank you so much, Jessica, for being here with us on this first attempt. You'll be with us on the next one. We greatly appreciate that as well.
Yeah, thank you. It is a pleasure, really an honor to be here supporting my colleagues on their journey to space. And this is all just part of the journey. Everyone's is different.
Absolutely. Just to recap really quickly, we had an issue with some ground equipment, the hydraulic equipment that controls the clamp arms on the Falcon 9 transporter erector, holds the rocket to the pad. It releases at about 4.5 minutes. There was an issue, and they're going to look at that, look at the data, and then decide whether or not to have some work to do or maybe some further data reviews before they decide on a launch date. So make sure you stay tuned to updates that we will have for you. Just head to nasa.gov/blogs/CREW-10. You see it at the bottom of your screen there. We'll have all the information you need to know once we have that available on the next launch attempt. For everybody here at NASA and SpaceX, I'm Daryl Nail for Jessica Muir. We'll see you next time.